Hello! Today I'm going to show you how you can create your first DataFlex web application. First I'm going to show you what the application looks like so that you know what we're aiming at, and then I'm going to show you step by step how you get to that result. The first step is going to be that I'm going to show you, of course, the end result, but the next step is we're going to create a workspace. The workspace is where you're going to put all your files that we're going to create and also the application. The next step is that we're going to create tables. So the tables are being used to store the data, and we're going to specify some stuff that you need to know for that. The next step is that we're going to create a select object. We're going to show you in the demo what a select object is and how to create a zoom object. The end result of this is going to be that you're going to have a finished application that you can take as a starting point to create new applications. Let's first take a look at the application that we're going to build. We're going to build a very small application in which you can register your media and, for example, who has your media at this point. And media can be a book, a CD or a DVD, whatever you want to register. For this we created this little application. When you launch the application, you get a dashboard and you see some tiles on the dashboard. When you click on a dashboard, for example on persons, you get a list of persons. If you click back on the dashboard and you go to media, you get a list of media. By clicking on media, you zoom into that specific media record and you can see the details of it, or you can make changes to that media. If you want to create a new media, you go back to the list and click on this little button to create a new media record. Here it asks you to fill out the form, and you can select, for example, a person that currently has that media in his possession. You see, it's very easy to use application. We have a breadcrumb, we have a dashboard, we have what we call a select. A select is the list of details that you see, and we have a zoom, which is the screen that you're going to when you click on a row. So this is the application, and now we're going to show you how you can build it. The first thing that you need is a workspace. The workspace is basically a folder on your hard drive where all the data is stored that belongs to your application. You just click on the new workspace menu item. It asks you for a description and a name and where to store the workspace. DataFlex will automatically store all the items from your application in the right spot. The first thing we need to do is create the workspace. I'm going to launch the DataFlex Studio for this. And I'm going to create on this button, click on this button, new workspace. It will ask some information. For example, what is the name of the workspace? It's going to be the Quickstart. And the description, it's a Quickstart demo. And the root of the workspace, I put it in C demo Quickstart. Usually that's a good position. Do not put it in my documents folder because Windows has some problems with that, because it's a web application. Just put it somewhere in the root or create a subfolder there. Click on next. You can select another database. We're not going to do that. We're going to stick with the defaults and click on finish. So what it did right now, it prepared the project and it created a workspace where it's going to put all the tables and all the program files that we're going to create. The first thing that we need to do is create an application. We're going to create a web application inside the workspace that we just created. Since DataFlex can be used to create both Windows applications and web applications, we need to decide what kind of application we want to build. In this case, we're going to select the web application mobile style. When you create that, it also wants to create a virtual directory in Internet Information Server, which is the web server that runs in Windows. For this, it is important that you run the studio as an administrator so that it has enough rights to actually create this virtual directory. So if you didn't start the studio as administrator, you want to shut it down and start it as administrator. After the application has been created, you can just run the studio normally without running it as administrator. The next step is that we create the application. To create an application, we go to File, New, Project, and we need to decide what kind of application. Because this is a web application, we need to choose one of the web application projects that you have available here, and we're going to choose the mobile web project because this one supports the drill down module that we want to create. So we click on OK. It wants to create a web application with the name of Quickstart and the virtual directory with the name of Quickstart, and we're just going to click OK. What you see here is this little button has this shield on it. That means we need to start the studio as an administrator because we need special rights to create the web applications. In this case, I didn't start it as an administrator, so I'm canceling out of here. And I'm going to quit the studio, and I right-click on the little item and right-click on the Visual Studio, and I say Run as Administrator. This might look a little differently on your machine, but basically you need to start the studio as an administrator only the first time when you create the web application. So from the Workspaces menu, I click on the Quickstart, so I make that the active workspace, and again go to File, New Work Project, and click on a mobile web project. The web application name is going to be Quickstart, Virtual Directory Quickstart, and now I click OK. So what the studio right now does, it prepares your environment, copies in all the necessary files so that we can start off building the application. So this takes a little while to copy it in the initial version, and it's done. What a good point is at this point, try if you can run the application. Of course, we didn't do anything yet, but it should already be runnable. So you can do that by clicking on this button, Run. It compiles the application, and it should bring up this little screen here, DataFlex, and it will ask you for a login name. For this application, I don't want you to log in. So the first thing we're going to do is make a little change in this project so that it doesn't require us to log in. To do that, we go to the app or to the tab that says Web App Source. This is the main entry point for the application. And you click on the C Web App. This is where we're going to create the object. Right-click it and go to the Object Properties to ask for the properties. And in the property screen here on the right-hand side, it will show you the properties. And there's a property called PE Login Mode, and it says login is required. I'm going to set this one to login supported. So I want to support login, but I don't want people necessarily to log in. So if I click on the Run button again, it will compile the application, and it should just show you the dashboard. So this is the basic application. Now we're going to set up the rest of the tables and the objects that we are going to work with. First, we're going to create a system file. Like I said before, the system file is just needed to keep track of the last person ID that has been issued and the last media ID that has been issued. We go to DataFlex and click on Create New Table. The name of the table is not really important. Usually I would call it sysfile or something like that. But we need to set a property that makes it sure that DataFlex understands that this is a system file, so that it only allows for one record, and that record will automatically be loaded by DataFlex. The first table that we are going to create is the system file. To create a table, go to the Database menu and click on Create New Table. It will ask you for a table name. In this case, I'm going to call it sysfile, and click OK. It will show you a screen where we can enter the fields that belong to the system file. And we need a field that holds the last person number that has been issued. I'm calling that person ID. And I make it of a type, the field type numeric. You can also choose it to ASCII for text, for date. And there are also some blobs, long text objects and long binary. You don't use these that often, so I'm going to use numeric here. 4.0 means 4 positions in front of the decimal point and 0 after, so basically a kind of integer. And I also need a field to hold the last media ID and make that also numeric. By clicking on the N, it automatically selects that and make it 4 positions. Because this is a system file, it means that it can only hold one record, and that should hold the settings. But we need to make sure that the table is flagged as a system file. You do that by going to the properties here. You might want to click into the description here so that it shows the properties of the table. And click on this property, df file is system file, set it to true, and that's it. So now you can save it, and the file is being created. If you want to take a look at the table, you can activate the Table Explorer. It should show the sys file here. You can right-click on it and say View the table. There is no data in it, but we might want to initially seed it with some data. I can click on this little button, change the data, and say the person ID should be 1000 and the media at 2000, just as an example. In this part, we're going to describe how we're going to create the table data, the table itself, and also the objects that you can use to maintain the table. So first we create a table for the persons to store, so define the fields, define the indexes, etc. And then we're going to create a data dictionary for the person table. The data dictionary will hold all the business rules that should be applied to the person fields. For example, we could say that last name is a required field. The next step is that we're going to create a zoom window for this person. And the zoom window should show all the details for that specific person, where you also can edit those details. Then the next step is to create a select window for this specific person table. The select is going to show you a list of persons, and when you click on a person, it's going to bring that person into the zoom that we just created. Okay, the next table that we're going to create is the person table. Again, go to the database menu, click on create new table and enter the name. I type in person, I should type it right of course. What I need for the person to store is a person ID, so I can uniquely identify a specific person in the list or in the table of persons. So I call that field person ID, and it's going to be of the type numeric, and it's going to have a length of 4. Next thing I want to register is the first name, which is a field ASCII, and the length of 40. And we have a last name, it's also ASCII field, 40. And we need a telephone number, which is going to be ASCII 20. And we need an email address, ASCII, and also a length of maybe 50. Okay. Because the person ID is going to be our key field, so it's going to be the unique identifier for this table, we need to create an index on that. So I click here on the indexes tab and click add an index, and that index should be on the person ID. Any combination of field values for a specific record should be unique. So there can only be one person with a person ID of 1, for example. So whenever you create an index, the combination of all fields should be unique in the complete table. Okay. Once we press the Save button, it's also going to create the person table, but also a data dictionary. The data dictionary is going to hold all the business rules that should be applied to this person data dictionary, to this person table. When you double click it, you get a list of the columns that have been defined, and we can, for example, say that last name should be a required field. So we go to required and say it should be true. So this way we can very easily make business changes. There are also other things that you can select here at this level. But basically this is where you maintain your business rules. What is good about having a data dictionary is that it is one central place where you store all your business rules. So any record that's going to be saved by your system is going to go through this data dictionary set of rules and make sure that the data is correct before it goes into the database. Okay, so we can save it, save the changes. The next step is that we're going to create what we call a zoom. A zoom is an application object that shows all the information about, in this case, a person. To create a zoom, we go again to the File, create New, and then we're going to create a web object. And then we can choose between a number of wizards or a number of templates that can help us create such a zoom. So we can use this web mobile zoom wizard to create one, or we can create one by hand. In this case, I'm going to use the wizard to create it because it's more easy to create it this way. So we click on OK, create a zoom. It brings up this wizard. Click on Next, and it says here, okay, there are a number of views that you can create. There's a different type between a select view and a zoom view. So what we would do is we create a zoom that we call person zoom. When I enter the name like this and move on to the next field, it suggests that it wants to add an O in front of the object name. Just accept that. Then you enter a file name without extension. And this is the file that's going to store the person zoom, and we need a description. And I'll just call that person, because this is a zoom that just displays the information on one person. When you click Next, You can choose what kind of zoom you want. You can also have a zoom that shows, for example, a header with details. But in this case, we want to create a simple form. So click on Next. And I click on what data dictionary should be used, so what table should be accessible for this zoom. That should be the person table. And it shows me all the columns that are associated with this person table. You can move them in individually on a zoom, so that you know how it should, what it should look like. If you like, you can also insert groups or tabs. I'm not going to do that for this demo, but you can make your view a lot more functional, especially if you have a lot of fields, by adding groups or tabs and organizing your fields that way. I click on Next. This screen allows you to make some modifications to the way the view looks. If you click on Adjust and Display, it will give you a little preview. I'll put them next to each other. And this preview is going to show you how the columns are positioned next to each other. And you can also change the length. If you look at the columns here, index, span, and count, there is a number in here, 12. And what it basically means is that in DataFlex, by default, a screen is divided into 12 columns, and you can specify for each object what the width of the column is and at what column it should start. And you can manually change it here if you like, or you can just let the system decide and change it in the code editor. I'm going to choose for the latter, so I'm going to change it in the code editor / designer later on. So I'm just pressing the Next button. It's going to create the object. Let's see, press Next and finish. So this is just a zoom. But before, as we saw in the demo, before you get to a zoom, you need to go through a select. And the select shows you a list of all the persons that are available in the system. So how do you create a select? It's very similar to creating a zoom. So you click on the File, New, and we're going to create another web object. But in this case, we're going to select the wizard for creating a select instead of the wizard for creating a zoom. So we create a select wizard, click on OK, and Next. The name is going to be person select. The file name is also going to be person select, and the description is going to be a list of persons, so I enter persons here. So what is the main table for this list? It's going to be persons, because I want to show persons in this list, and I can select what columns I want to show. I want to show the person ID, the first name, and the last name. I keep it short, but you can also change this later if you like. Click on Next. Then it asks, okay, we're going to create a list of persons, and when you click on a person, what is the thing that should happen? We need to decide what kind of what we call navigation should occur. Now it should be both navigating forward or backward. So this view should be able to be used as a drill down model, but also as a pick list. For example, if we're going to create later a media type or piece of media, we want to be able to select a person. We also want to use the list for that. So I'll leave this to both. And next we need to say, okay, when you click on a person, what object should be activated to go to? In this case, we're going to select the person zoom that we just created. So click on the zoom button and click the person zoom. It automatically recognizes the object in there. And I'm also going to select the person zoom to when you click on it. So in both cases, I'm selecting the person zoom here. This is something that we're going to change later on. So for now, we just make it both the person zoom. Click on Next. This is the layout and preview screen. So you can click on Adjust and Display just to get a quick preview of what it looks like. And we can change this later if you like. So for example, if we want to give the person ID a little bit more space, I can deselect Auto, adjust here, and say, okay, this column should be 100, and this column should be maybe 300 and 300. The total of this, being 700, is being used to divide the screen into sections, so how wide each thing should be. So it doesn't define the number of pixels, it's just more like a weight that you assign to each column. Click on Next and click on Finish. Okay. So right now what we did is we created the person table, we created a person zoom, and we created a person select, and these should all work together. So we can now try to run the application. It compiles it, compilation went fine. And where can you find the solution? That is underneath the menu, underneath views, we have persons, and this is going to activate the person select that we just created. So if you click on it, we get a list of all persons, but there isn't any at this moment because we need to create one. So let's create a new one. You can do that by clicking on this button. I want to, the person ID, I leave it empty because it should be assigned by the system, and which I just forgot to define. So let's go back. I forgot an important point. Close the application. I go back to my table explorer. I go to the person data dictionary, double click it here, because I want the person ID to be automatically assigned by the system file that we created earlier. So how do you do that? You select the person ID, you scroll down a bit here, and you see a field here or a property called auto increment. And this you can point to another table, in this case the system file that we created, and say the auto increment should be coming from the system file person ID. I click OK, so now it gets automatically the next person number assigned by the system file. Recompile the application, and we go again to the person view. So now if we click here, we can enter something, but we shouldn't. The first name should be Mickey, and the last name Mouse, and we can save it by clicking on this button. And now you see we get automatically created a person with number 1001. The name is Mickey Mouse. If we click on it, it automatically takes us to the zoom window. You can click on this edit button to make it editable, and you can change the fields here. As you can see, you also have the thumbnail bar built up automatically, so if you want to go directly back, you can click here or go back or click here to go back to the dashboard. The next step is to create a media table. It's a similar cycle as we did for a person table. So first we're going to create the media table, then we're going to create the media data dictionary, in which we're going to create the business rules that should be applied to the media. But we're also going to set up a relationship between the media table and the person table that we just created, so that they know of each other. Then we're going to, just like we did with the person table, create a zoom where all the details of that media type is shown, and also create the select wizard to create a select that's going to show a list of all the media. So you click on the item in the list and it brings you to the media zoom that we just created. The next table that we're going to create, and not only the table but also the zoom and the select object, is the media. So again, we go to database and say we want to create a new table, and the table name is called media. Okay, and create the fields, media ID. It's going to hold the number from the media 4, and there should be a title. ASCII, let's make it 50, and we should have the authors, ASCII 50. And we also want to register as a media type. What kind is it? Is it a book? Is it a CD, etc.? And we're going to store that in a ASCII, let's make it 20 field. What we also want to do is register who has this media. That's what we have the person table for. So in this table, we're going to put a field, person ID, and that should be the ID of the person that currently has this media. So I make this a numeric field 4, because that's also how we define the person ID in the person table. What's special for this person ID is that this actually is a relationship to the person table that we created. So what we're going to do is activate this tab here, relationships, and we're going to add a relationship and say this field relates to the person table from the media field person ID to the person field person ID. So now we created a relationship between those two tables, and by doing that, DataFlex automatically knows how to find the data, but also, for example, how to show the right data when you click on a person and show only the media that belongs to the person. For making that happen, we first should create also an index on the table. The first index should be the index just on the key media ID. So add an index on the media ID. And then we create another index, and since this index should be on the person ID, and to make it unique, we're going to add the media ID as well. So by doing this, DataFlex can show you very efficiently a list of all the media that is in possession of a certain person. Okay, we can save this table, press save here, and as similar to the person table, it also created a data dictionary that can hold all the business rules. So if we go to the media data dictionary by double clicking on it, click on the media ID, and the media ID should be automatically assigned by the system file that we created. So we go to the auto increment property of the media ID field, and we relate it to the media ID field from the system file so that it automatically gets a new value assigned. Okay. What we also can set, and I forgot to do that for the person, is protect key value. We can set that to true, and what that means is that once this media has an ID or a specific number assigned to media ID, you can no longer change it, because that might have influence on other parts of the application. Okay. For the media type, we want the user to be able to only select from a certain set of media types, like a CD, like a book, like a DVD, but they have to make a decision on that. And to enforce that, we're going to attach what we call a validation object. So first we're going to create a validation object, add, and I'm going to call that one also media type. And I select in this case the standard validation table. There are also other ways of storing validation table, but the standard one is going to be stored in source code, which is most convenient right now. So this media type validation table, I'm going to attach that to the media type column and press OK. So it shows me here the values that are valid for this field, media type, and I'm going to enter CD because people can enter CDs. It can be DVD, it can be a book, or it can be other, for example. So these are the 4 media types. Should you want extra types in the future, you can always go back here and add some more types. Once we're done, we just press the save button. It will save both the table and also the data dictionary, so we can start creating a media zoom and a media select for this media table. To create the media zoom, you go to File, New, Web Object, and I'm again going to use the wizard to create a zoom for the media table. I press Next and Next. The name is going to be O Media Zoom. The file name is Media Zoom, and I'm going to call the zoom or give it a description of media. Next, I want to have to be a simple one, and it's going to be on the media table. Press Next. So here we can select the fields that we want. Well, first I want to show the media ID, then the title, then the author, the media type, and as last I want to show the person that currently holds this media, and I want to show the the person ID, the first name and the last name. So as you can see, instead of having just fields from one table, it now shows not only the columns or from the field itself, or for the table itself from the media table, but also from the related tables, in this case person. Should person itself be related to yet another table, then also those tables and fields will be shown. So it's completely relational in that way. Press Next. You can look at what it's going to look like by clicking on this button here, but we're going to adjust it a little bit later. So press Next. It's going to generate it and finish. So we created the media zoom. The next object that we need to create is the media select. Again, go to File, New Web Object, and we select the Web Mobile Select View Wizard. Also on the same table on media. So this is going to be the media select. Yes, please put an O in front of it. And this is going to be the list of media. So press Next. The main table is the media table, And in here I want to show, for example, the media ID, the title, the authors, and maybe I want to show the first name and the last name, like that. Click Next, and we want to be able to click on it. Most of the time I select both here, both navigation styles to be applicable, and in both cases I want the view to go to the media zoom. So I select the media zoom that we just created. Should you have created the objects in a different order, so first the media select and then the media zoom, you can always enter those by name, or you can change those names after you finish this wizard in the source code. So we press Next, and Next is going to create all the necessary objects, and we can run the application. So when we run the application, we should have underneath views now also the media. When you click on media, you can click on the new button to create a new media. The media ID should be automatically assigned, so we don't need that. We need to have a title. This is my song, and these are my authors. And the media type, this is one that we want to automatically be selected from the list of possible values. So we're going to make a change there. And from the person ID, you see this little magnification screen, which says it cannot drill down because we didn't specify a view yet. We need to fix this error as well. Okay. We just created some screens, the zoom specifically, and also the lists. And what you often want to do is to lay out the system in a certain way that you would like it to be. DataFlex uses a specific layout system for this, which divides your screen into a number of columns. The number of columns it divides it into is up to you, but by default we have a default of value of 12 columns. And what you can do is each object can be positioned to start at a specific column and to have a length of a number of columns. Using that, it makes it much more flexible if people change, for example, screen sizes, or maybe if they also want to see your application running on a mobile device. By using the columns, you can later on very easily make changes to that. What is specific to it, that each object has a starting column. If that starting column fits behind the length of the previous object that has been defined, then it will automatically be put after each other. So if that starting column overlaps the previous object, then it will automatically be put on the next row. You will see that in the demo. But this positioning system makes it very flexible for you to not having to code in pixel sizes, for example, but to have a very rough idea on how the screen is laid out. Okay, we just created the media table, the media zoom, and the media select. And we saw that we got a little error message, which is not really an error, but more like a notification that it could not find a person. Let's maybe first show you how you can reorganize the screen a bit. If you want to reorganize the screen, you can either click on this button here to toggle between the code editor and the design views, or as it shows in the tooltip, I should say, you can also press the F7 key. So when I press the F7 key on my keyboard, it brings up this media screen. And you can see this is a kind of what you see is what you get screen designer, where you can organize the objects. First of all, I said this also when we created the first item, but the screen is divided into 12 columns, and these are numbered 0 to 11. By having 12 columns, it gives you a very easy way of organizing your screen without having to specify sizes, for example, in pixels. If you click on the container itself, it shows you this, but if you click on a specific object, for example, first name, you will see that you get a special toolbar around this. So what you can change here is the width by clicking on this little placeholder. You can change the width of columns, and by clicking on this placeholder here, you can change the position. As soon as the position is changed to a column that makes it fit, for example, after this person ID, it will automatically put it there. So if I want this first name to appear after the person ID, I just click it here and drag it and make it on position 1. or maybe 2 in this case, it's better. And you see it automatically positions it after the person ID. So then it gives me the possibility of making the person ID a little wider, like a 2 column. And I want to have this last name fit after the first name, so probably want to change the size a bit of first name and maybe make this one equally wide. So I put first name under last name under first name, first make it equally wide and then position it after it, so we can redecorate the screen a little bit. What I also want is this media type item. I want that to automatically show you a list of available fields, and you can pretty easily do that. By double clicking on this object, it takes me to the right spot in the source code. It says here I have an object with the name of media, which is the name of the table, and then media type, which is the name of the column, and it's a web form. I can change this into a C web combo form. If I want to have a list of available options, I can press Ctrl space and you get a list of all the objects that are available, and there should also be a combo form in here, web combo. And what that will do, it will make it automatically a drop-down list. You see it automatically appear here. And because in the data dictionary we assigned that it can only have certain values, like a CD, a DVD or a book, it will automatically use that list to fill this drop-down box. For the person ID, we got an error when we clicked on this little magnification glass. So if I double-click the object, it takes me there. And there you see very specifically that it was programmed to give an error, because we need to define what should happen if somebody clicked on this magnification glass. Well, basically, I wanted to go to the person select that we created earlier. As you can see, it has some placeholder text here. I can say register object person select, and then say once you click on it, it's going to execute this little procedure on prompt. We say send navigate forward of this whole person select, and that is going to activate that person select that we created earlier. If I want the title to appear after the media ID, I can, this probably fits 4 positions, but just for sake, let's make it a little bit wider. And this one, I can position it at column 2, so it will be positioned after the media ID. And this one I can make it a little wider, so that it's aligned right. Maybe shorten both by 1 position, like that, so it aligns a bit better. Let's see if it works right now. So compile and run the application. We go to the menu, go to View, Media, and click on this New button. I want to create a title for my song. Let's spell it right, which has been written by my authors. And the media type, as you can see, I can now select it. It's a DVD or a CD. And the person, when I click on this button, it's going to show a list of all the available person. I just clicked on put in Mickey. So I click on Mickey and I save the record. And it takes us back to the media list. As you can see, I have a little space for the number. The number doesn't come through, all right, and then the other ones are equally sized. So what I can do is go back to my media list and make sure that this little button here, it gets maybe the same size of the half of the size of my song. And this is just something that you need to judge or feel or get a feeling for how wide things should be, as it depends on the width of the other columns. So let's go back to this media select. It's probably here, media select, and this column is responsible for this showing the number. I can double click on it, so it takes me to the list, and you see here we have the list. Our list is a web list, and we have an object for each column in there, and it sets a width. These are all set to 225, 240, 400. Okay, this is just pick any number. I make those 400, so I'll make them equally wide. Or maybe I should make those 200, 200, and that one also 200 in size. And I set this width to maybe 400, and this one also 400, and the width of the ID to 100, not 1000, 100. and just see what it looks like. And as you can see, it's now a bit more wide. I think this is wide enough for showing 4 positions for an ID, but the best way to look at it is to test it. So just run the application again. It compiles it automatically. View the media, and you now have a list of 2001 is my song, my authors. If I click on it, it takes me directly to that screen. If I want to make changes, I click on the edit button. You can make the changes. It was a DVD after all. And we click on the save button to save the settings. Right now we program this way that if you go to persons and I click on a person, it takes me to this specific person. But what I want to do is that when I click on a person, I want it to automatically show me a list of all the media that belongs to this person. And we're going to make some changes for that in the next section. Now that we created the necessary items for both the person and the media table, we can make a change in the person select so that when you click on a person, it will not take you to the person zoom, but to the media zoom, and will then automatically, the media select I should say, so it automatically shows a list of all the media items that belong to that person. Let's show you how to do that. So now that we have the basic of the application ready, I want to make a little modification, and I want to have the modification to take place on this person list. So by default, the way it works right now, if you run the application and you go to the list of persons and you click on a person, it goes to the person record itself. But what I wanted to do, that once I click on a person, it should show the media that belongs to this person. So how do you change that? First of all, you go to the object where you want to make the change, which is the person select in this case. And if you press the F7 key or you press this little button here, it will take you directly to this screen editor. And if you double click on the row, it will automatically activate that part or put the cursor in that part of the application. As you can see, we are inside the list object, and the list object consists out of a number of web columns. And it also has a procedure on row click. This procedure will be executed when you do the on row click, of course. As you can see here, it has a number of exceptions, but by default, it will activate the person zoom. I don't want that. I want it to activate the media select. So I copy these 2 lines of code underneath it, just so I can uncomment or comment out these original lines. And I say register object, and this is not the person zoom, but a media select. So we're drilling down from a person into the media that belongs to that person. And here also, go to O media select. And now if I run the application, we go back to the persons list, view persons, and I click on Mickey. I get a list of all the media that belong to Mickey. If I go back to person and click on Donald, then I see what belongs to Donald. And if I click on Forrest Gump, I see that Forrest Gump has no media. So within just a few lines of code, you change actually the behavior of the applications. And for the good viewers, I added some lines of data in between the sections so that we actually have something to click on and to look at. So now we come to the list of media. You click on the media, that again keeps on going to the zoom, and I can make changes here if I like, just like that. If I go back to the dashboard, I can from that point on, through the menu, activate, for example, personal media. But what I actually would like to do in the next step is use those tiles to go directly to, for example, the persons, or directly go to the media. So let's make those changes. So what we did now, we create some components in the applications that are accessible through the menu, as you saw. But we can also use the dashboard to go directly to those objects. Let's make it so that some of the tiles, or one tile is responsible for going to the person select, and another tile is going to be responsible to go to the media select. Let's show you how to do that. Like I said, the next change that we're going to make is to change the dashboard. Where can you find the dashboard? On the right hand side here you have the Workspace Explorer, and you see we have the web app source here, which has some web views. Here you see all the views that have been added by us. And at the top by default there's the dashboard. If you double click on the item, it will directly activate that piece of source code here, and you can look at it. The dashboard is basically some manual created dashboard, and it has some tiles in it. So there is an object here that represents the dashboard. It's a group, and then we have a welcome tile that shows some information, and a tile 2, and we have a tile 3 and a tile 4. The code here is basically just HTML, and it will be presented as HTML on your dashboard. And this little code here, we can change that and say, okay, what we want to do is if you click on this button here, and it has here the text tile 2, but I'm going to change it into persons. I wanted to activate the persons view. So I'm going to fill in the on click here. I say register object person view, person select of course, and that should activate the person select. So that way when we click on tile 2, it's going to show that these are persons, and it's going to take us to the persons. We do a similar thing for tile 3. We change the text here, tile 3 text, and change it into media. And then we say if we click on it, register the object, and this one should be media select, and the navigation should be brought forward to that object, media select. Select. So now if we compile and run the application, it should first show the dashboard. The dashboard shows now welcome, persons and media. If I click on persons, it takes me to the persons. If I go back to the dashboard and click on media, I see the media. If I zoom in, I can go directly to the media. I can go to persons, look at a person's media, or I can click on this little button that takes me directly to the person row, so I can make changes. If I want to add a person, I go back to the list and click on this button here to add a person, or if I want to add some media, I can go to media and click on this little button here. That's it. As you saw, it's pretty easy to create a web application using DataFlex. There are, of course, much more to tell and many more features in DataFlex. If you want to know all about it, you can also go to the help reference, for example, in which things are described. But there's also very good material available on the website. For example, a PDF document that shows you step by step how to build up an application. I hope you're going to view it.